Germano. I am TA within the Modern Management of Older Adult Division in both the on and online settings. I want to welcome you all to the PT on Ice Daily Show brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. Thank you for joining me a tiny bit earlier today. I have a patient at 9 o'clock, so I wanted to make sure we got this one in before the day got started. So, administrative things. We are starting our next online Essential Foundations cohort January 6th, filling up very quickly. Good morning, Jeff. It's filling up very quickly, and if you are struggling to figure out a Christmas gift for yourself, a Christmas gift in the PT or rehab space, this is a great option to start off the year on the right foot. The next cohort of MMOA, which you would need to complete that CERT MMOA, is starting on January 13th. This is a great course to dive into the more complex orthopedic to really strengthen your clinical decision-making and exercise prescription with the population. That one really essential foundations altogether because the older adult population is just riddled with almost every condition you can think about. And once you feel strong treating those things, it really does wonders for your practice. So consider AC, the Advanced Concepts course, if you have not yet joined that cohort. So today, we're going to talk about what collaborative care should look like. If you're in the Jerry space, you're probably working a lot and very closely with, I hope, OTs, speech therapists, PTs. We're all kind of working together. Now, I came up with this topic because in the latest publication of the Journal of Geriatric PT, they had an article called, and this was I think it's like the version from like October to December. It was called a survey on the division of therapeutic interventions between physical and occupational therapists in SNF and long-term care facilities. I was really interested. I wanted to see what our profession was doing. They asked 162 DPT students who were out on clinical rotations to report what they were seeing in terms of division of therapeutic interventions. Did they see that of upper and lower extremity? And you know what? 94% of those DPT students reported that they did see OT strictly treating, assessing, intervening with the upper extremity. And then the lower extremity was being treated and examined by the physical therapist. I'm sorry, I see a question on Instagram. You can write it in and I'll try to answer it during this time. So I know this is happening in many other places versus just the skilled nursing facilities and long-term care facilities. I have seen it in my current practice in outpatient therapy, where the occupational therapists are just doing uppers or getting referrals for uppers, and the physical therapists are just getting referrals for lowers. I see PTs Theract, maybe only doing functional mobility with somebody, and I see occupational therapists who are only doing therapeutic exercise with people, and they're only doing just straight exercise without, any functional relationship at all, or they're never bringing that back into function. From both sides, very interesting ways of practicing. But I in split. I'm here to present a different way to split up care between PT and OT. And we will even chat a tiny bit about the PT-ST relationship as well, the speech therapists, because I think they are very valuable resources. I understand that facilities, it may be like the higher ups at your facility that may be encouraging therapists to take this approach. They may be encouraging the therapists like, I'm only going to send the PTs to walk people. I'm only going to send the OTs to go help people use the bathroom. They might be encouraging a split like this, but I think we're just, it seems simple, but we're missing out on a lot when we divide up care this way. And you don't really get the full benefit of having a trained professional, both the OT and the PT, who is capable at looking and assessing the entire picture and treating somebody. I actually collaborated with my former OT and speech therapist partners in Virginia, and we talked a lot to get a good background for this. Because I didn't want this to be a one-sided PT discussion. This is not me dictating what the relationship should be from an OT or with an OT and a speech therapist, because I think sometimes PTs get that rap that like we're the ones in charge. But I take a lot of my leads from the occupational therapist, and I find that when we have a really solid working relationship, the outcomes for the patients are way better. And I didn't want to be here just talking about my own experience, so I talked with a conversation that I had between my occupational therapist, work wife, and speech therapist. So we will dive into talking all about collaborative care. And this may end up being an episode entirely about why I think occupational therapists and that profession is way cooler than PT, but I'm going to try to make it very applicable. PT is pretty cool too. Let's talk PT-OT. Instead of dividing the body in half, I think that the physical therapist and the occupational therapist relationship is a lot bigger than this. The PT is there to treat a biomechanical on pain, treating range of motion restrictions, improving overall strength and balance, improving gait abnormalities. These are the building blocks of life. These are the building blocks of function. Dependence in ADLs, IADLs, and overall function in life. So the OT is putting everything that the PT builds up with the patients and puts it into action. In all honesty, I think what the OT is doing is way more than what the PT is doing. Literally anything the person in their home, in their life, whatever they touch that makes them function as a human being is in the realm of OT. That's their space. Their space is everything. And it makes me crazy when I see OTs limited to the upper body or when they're only doing TheraX, because they have so much more to offer. So the way that I try to look at it is PT is going to strengthen up the building blocks. We're going to be there to work on someone's balance, endurance, raw strength, so that the OT can put it all into action into a meaningful way. It's great that I can get someone to deadlift 30 pounds. Fair, that's awesome. But it's way cooler to show them how that's going to translate directly into their life, and that's where the OT comes into play. Or I can do basket deadlifts with them. That's great. But OT is going to do the task of laundry with them. Doing it with somebody, unless I got really, really creative. But that's what the occupational therapist is there to do. So we do the building blocks, PT, building blocks. OT puts it into action. So after I evaluate somebody, or we evaluate somebody, the PT and the OT, we are communicating heavily back and forth. The occupational therapist will report to me, hey, this person is having a lot of trouble lifting things into high cabinets, having meaningful engagement with their grandkids, or like having, being able to play on the floor with them. They have really low endurance while performing ADLs. And because as a PT, I didn't watch all of their ADL or their morning routine or watch them shower, I just go based off their subjective reports. And if you have talked with any of your patients recently about how their morning routine goes, they say, oh, it's fine. I have no problem doing that. It's all good, easy. I'm going to miss something if I go based on their subjective reports. But the occupational therapist gets to watch them in action. This person, and they're watching their morning routine going, oh my God, there was 4 near falls. The person desatted to 85% SpO2. Their heart rate is through the roof. Their pain is so bad at the end of their 3 hour, because it takes them 3 hours to get ready because they're moving so slowly. And if I just go based off the subjective reports, I'm missing out on all that because our patients all think they are just fine. And as a PT, I can pick up on tons of things that the occupational therapist can also work on in their evaluations. I see it all the time. And people tell me all the time when I'm working with them, oh, I've really struggled with like my handwriting lately. Like I'm having a lot of trouble writing things. I am having a really tough time using my home exercise program on my iPad. Like I just don't know how to use this thing. They struggle. Maybe I can see that they struggle with toileting or self-care, or I can smell it. I can pick up on things like maybe they have difficulty meal planning. I want to encourage my patients to eat an appropriate amount of protein. I want to make sure that they're eating food and not just eating like, cereal in the morning. difficult and meal planning is difficult, that's the OT space. So all these things that I want my patients to do, I really could helping facilitate all the goals that would make this person's life a lot better. I could see environmental or safety problems um, that would, indicate that they have some dysfunction ADL or IADL space. I see it all the time when I walk into someone's house and I'm slowly seeing their environment starts to get more riddled with clutter. And I'm seeing that time, they're having a really difficult time keeping up and managing a house and managing cleaning that house. That's the occupational therapist bread and butter right there to come in and really help figure out what the issue is. How can we make this? Should we be getting a cleaning service for them? What makes sense for the patient and where they're functionally at. I can also intervene when a patient tells, this is somebody I know, 3 hours to do the medications for her husband and herself for the week. OT can help with that. This person has Parkinson's disease. No wonder it's taking so long for her to separate pills, to cut the pills. There's a lot that goes into that the occupational therapist can work wonders on. So you see why I get so heated when I only see OTs do Therax, is because they can have such a more meaningful impact on a patient's life, or when they're just confined to the upper extremity, they can have such a meaningful impact on someone's life. And I hope you all are. Now, I want to use some patient examples because I think this will break this up a little bit more, or what my theory on what collaborative care should look like. Example, someone with knee pain, somebody with back pain. Classic physical therapy, right? We've got it. I'll have it covered, no problem. I'm not even going to bother with that OT script. Let's think again. As a PT, I will walk in. I'm going to assess lower quarter, back, etc. What's driving their pain. I'm going to work on any strength, range of motion, or gait deviations that need treating. I may use manual therapy. I may use strength. I may use working on functional capacity to improve their ability to do things around their house. I may be creating AMRAPs and EMOMs focused around squats, deadlifts, weighted carries, marches, overhead pressing, upper body pulling. What you would see in a cross AMRAPs and EMOMs with this patient. Now the OT is going to come in because I love OT and I'm definitely going to get somebody with back pain or knee pain a prescription for occupational therapists. They're going to see that their endurance and the quality of their movement during their morning routine is horrendous, is super poor, right? They're going to observe that whole morning routine and go, well, no wonder this person's in pain. They have to do some crazy transfer into their shower. Their knee cannot handle that, etc. They watch them do all these things, get dressed, go downstairs, make breakfast, clean up. They're assessing how this person interacts and functions within their space for their morning routine. They're going to see how the pain is rising. They're going to offer solutions for activity pacing. They might make DME or adaptive equipment recommendations to help reduce pain. They're not just band-aiding the situation. They're just trying to make this person function optimally within their house. So they're going to make sure they have the appropriate shower bench, or they have a better way to transfer into that shower. They are going to modify the environment to set patients up for success. Now, to build up the patient's endurance in the daily activity, the OT may also program EMOMs and AMRAPs, totally within their scope. But they may be loaded with functional tasks. Their AMRAPs and EMOMs might look like one transfer into the shower, reaching for bottles in the shower, maybe doing some overhead press to mimic, how exhausting head overhead press work to on minute 3. And they might be doing dishes in the kitchen, unloading from the dishwasher. There are so many things that they can do in those types of workout structures that is related to the goals of the patient, but also it is just very clearly occupational therapy versus them just doing straight Therax during the whole thing, right? Because that's going to be really meaningful for the patient to engage with their environment in that way and with the objects that they're already struggling. Quick upper body example. This is a shoulder fracture that I had recently. Moving the patient through her post-fracture protocol. I'm aware in treating her balance deficits that caused her to fall and fracture her shoulder. I'm maintaining her endurance during this time when she can't really use her arms or upper body. And I'm thinking about thoughtful exercise prescription that I can continue to challenge her and keep her strong, although her shoulder is healing. Now the OT here was like a godsend because she was able to teach the patient how to shower, how to change. The patient came home with nothing, no prescriptions for therapy. They knew she had therapists at home already. She had one night in the ER, came home. She had no idea. No one trained her on how to use the sling, how to take it on and off, how to shower, how to manage anything. So that she could help with changing clothes, getting dressed, how to cook with one arm. Like how do you lift a big pan out of the oven? Maybe what modifications can you make to your cooking? You don't need to, you don't need to like risk dropping a big heavy dish. How can you train family and caregivers to help? How can you function while on pain medications? How do you stay on top of those pain medications? And how we can meld worlds, how we can honor the and give patients a truly elevated level of care as they assess the person as a whole rather than chopping up the human being. Like, I don't think we need to chop up people, treat and what other people treat. I think we are both there to treat the whole. An acute care example that a colleague brought up to me, which was interesting because I think if in acute care, there's a little more like to the turf. And so she said, as an occupational therapist, if she was walking a patient in the would just look at her and go, I was gonna see that patient after lunch. I was gonna walk them. I'm so mad at you. Why are you walking my patient in the hallway? The occupational therapist may in fact be assessing and working on a patient's activity pacing, working on therapeutic functional mobility. They're thinking about where this person has to walk when they get home. They are assessing their dual task capabilities and cognitive function when walking. I try to do that, but that's not my main goal when I'm walking with somebody. Usually it's endurance or there's some type of gait deviation I'm working on. The cognitively can relate to them during, like, can they keep up a conversation when they walk? What are they going to have trouble with when they go home? They can absolutely jump in and walk that patient also. We don't need to split that up. I can also walk the patient, but I'm going to be 100% focused on a different thing. I'm working on improving a patient's swing phase of gait, working on their single leg stance capabilities. I'm assessing their endurance. I may make a DME recommendation. As a PT, we have tons of training into the gait cycle. We learn the gait cycle. Give a lot more attention to form and technique here. That will help them improve their endurance and help them like stop wasting so much energy, which is different from and then working on. So my main strategies for optimizing this relationship include communicate, get on the same page about cueing. Consistency is everything when you work with a mutual patient. So ask how you guys cue transfers and give feedback on how, how are you going to cue walking? How are you going to cue transfers? All these things. Get on the same page. So you speak the same. Make sure you give them a heads up on things to assess. 1,000 times a day, I hear something that the OT can help them with. I immediately send a message to my counterpart and say, hey, so-and-so said they have trouble with this. Can you please assess? For me, working with a woman who had to bookmark exercises on her computer and her laptop, and she did not know how to do bookmarks, she did them, and these are I want her to do. Occupational therapy will help with technology management. Now, understand how you want to impact patients' lives. People have passions for different things. I worked with an OT who was so strong at working with people who had fear and working on how to break down those barriers. And she understood and knew my strengths in corrective exercise programming. So she knew what to expect from me. And then figure out your best line of communication. My OT and I would speak regularly. Educate yourself on what the scope of OT and PT is. I think you'll be shocked to know how much OTs can do and how they can enhance the lives of people. If you don't understand what OTs do or what PTs do or what they learn in school, just go ask. Sit down and talk with one. It can be really or don't. Drop your ego. Know where your scope ends and where another begins. I have to admit, I am way in over my head most of the time. And I think OTs come to save my day a lot of the time. Educate and promote the professions to patients. I think patients are also really comfortable with the upper extremity, lower extremity narrative, or they think OTs only help them to the bathroom. So please change that narrative. Explain for your colleagues. Outcomes are much better and more meaningful when we engage in patient care this way. We are going to look like a more organized team. If you want to, okay, it's really interesting, and I've talked for far too long. I'm totally going to get in trouble. But I want to maybe say that for another day, that PT-ST relationship, because speech therapists are an unlikely duo with Q. So I hope this was helpful in conceptualizing a better relationship for PT and OT care. It's not just uppers and lowers. We can all do everything. And we can all work together in a way, more cohesive ways. I know that the OT-ST relationship has a lot of interesting nuances to it too. I'm going to leave that for people who are occupational or speech therapists to talk about. If you practice this way, let me know if you engage in the upper extremity, lower extremity split. I would be really interested. And I would be interested to know where, if you don't do that or how you're treating your patients. Leave some comments on Facebook and Instagram about your best practices with your PT, OT, ST counterparts. I would love to hear them. I hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday and have a good week.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.